Welcome into the Energy Tech Podcast. Today, we're joined by Zach Scriven, a leader in the Ignition community, live from ICC 2025.
Oh, man. Hey, Jeff, thanks for that intro. I am your co-host, Mike Flotis with the Energy Tech Podcast. We are live right here in the heart of Sacramento with ICC 2025 Inductive Automation. And with us is a guest that I've been trying to get my hands on for a while to have him on the show. And I'm glad he's here, Mr. Zach Scriven. Zach, thank you for joining us, man, on the show. It's good to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for having me. It's awesome to be here. The energy is like electric. So
yes, it is. And you know, Jeff introduced you, but I think he downplayed it. But I will say you are definitely a leader and an innovator, I would say, in the inductive automation, the community really for Ignition as a whole. And when we start talking about things like Unified Namespace, we talk about some serious architectural work that you've done. I think you play a big part in that. But before I even do any of that and talk about it, I want to get your take on a couple of things.
yeah, sure.
So number one, you know, here at ICC, there's been a tone of level up. And that tone, you know, when Ignition launched that as their theme, I see a few things. Here it is. The first theme is that they moved to a brand new venue. It's bigger than Folsom. It gives more room for the community members. Number two was the launch of 8.3, I think is a big deal for Ignition, you know, with the implementation or the push for 8.3. I think the third one is bringing a little bit of the prove it flavor to this conference that you helped architect. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So that's number two. And I think the fourth way is they're engaging groups like the Energy Tech Podcast, which means we can come here and get insights from leaders. We can get insights from integrators. We can get insights from end users and folks that are actual partners with Ignition on product lines, which is really great. But I want to get your take in terms of what you see as level up. What's different last year and this year, and how do you see that transitioning to that whole theme of level up?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can't really speak to last year because the last time I was at ICC was in 2022.
Okay.
But I was at the first two ICCs, like 2013, 2014, 2018, 2022. So this is my fifth ICC, and it has leveled up. For me personally, you know, I've also leveled up. So that, but also looking at other people that I've followed for years, like Joanna, who is the director of multimedia at ICC, like she leveled up. Like she had a moment on stage, this amazing stage. And just to like have known her for like over a decade, working with the folks at Inductive Automation, obviously Carl and Colby, like the lead developers, they've always had their time to shine in like the spotlight. But to see people within the community that I've known for a long time, I mean, look at you guys. You guys are leveling up. This setup is sick.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
We're
like,
glad.
So I think it's like everyone is individually leveling up, and we're coming together to, you know, it's been incredibly productive. Had a lot of conversations and learned a lot. Honestly, it's awesome. That's my take. Is like everyone is individually leveling up here. Yeah,
and you know, for our community, just so you know, Zach, you know what we're reaching is we have this mid-level group that are they're not. I call it. I'm going to use the word nerds because I'm one. Okay, so you have this technology nerds where you can deep dive with them about UNS. You can talk about, you know, data ops and structures and downstreaming data, sub-millisecond data. You can talk about all that. But sometimes you have folks that have a budget, and what they're looking at is, I want a proof of concept. I'm still industry 3.0. I'm not 4.0. And, you know, I think you're a great voice. If you're talking to that group, you know, since you are a leader and you were instrumental in starting off Walker Reynolds brand at 4.0 Solutions, and I think you were a big part also in the brainchild behind the Prove It conference series that came. So I see lots of positivity there. You were also part of the team on the Firebrand award-winning. What year was that?
That was like 2015 when that Firebrand award was awarded.
And so
it was
2015, and that was for Pioneer Natural Resources, an oil and gas E&P producer, right there in West Texas.
That's where I met Walker. Yeah.
Wow. So that's where you met him. So here you are. And at that point was the early launch of what I'm calling the first UNS. Is that fair? Is that a right statement?
That's where I was first introduced to it. But Walker, you know, had had early concepts of the UNS that
Right.
it was in like 2005. He
Yeah.
first built a unified namespace using RS links connecting to a Rockwell PLC,
Right.
and then using DDE to bring in tag values into a spreadsheet. Then he had that an Excel spreadsheet that was shared on a network drive, so literally everyone could open that
Yeah.
spreadsheet and see a unified view of all their data, structurally, semantically organized. So that, it was the very first UNS,
Yeah.
but we didn't really call it that back then.
Right. Exactly. So that was that early form, that early foray into UNS, right? And you were a big part of that. So I just want our community to
Yeah.
know that that's who you are. What else can you say about yourself? You're introducing yourself to the community about where you play a part in that, because again, our reach is typically energy, oil and gas. That includes renewable natural gas, landfill gas, battery storage, data center, and now off-grid power to data center. What do you think? Where do you fit into that?
Yeah, so like I played a huge part. I'd always wanted to be a YouTuber when I was a kid. So like
Yeah.
when I created my own marketing agency and I started working with Walker in 2018, I mean, he has a magnetic personality,
Yeah.
and he's a great educator. So naturally, I put him in front of the camera to teach what is IIoT, what is MQTT, what is digital transformation.
Yeah.
So through working with him, we were able to educate a lot of people that essentially digital transformation is the process that a company goes through to
Right.
turn data into the primary commodity to drive decision making.
Yes.
That's kind of what it is. It's like a company like Tesla, is a very digitally advanced company.
correct.
But a lot of the manufacturers that we worked with and educated were, digitally in the dark.
Right.
And there was a lot of misinformation, or a lot of vendors, a lot of the large players in the past, they didn't really do a good job at being open architecture,
Report by exception.
right?
Yeah.
So they built closed ecosystems. So unified namespace was like the single concept that we promoted, or some would say preached,
Right.
to build open interoperable ecosystems built around IIoT and MQTT. So
Yeah.
that was like kind of the genesis of the unified namespace. Like that name stuck when we were explaining it in a video, and then we just continued to popularize it. After a few years, a lot of the vendors in the space started talking about it.
Yeah.
And like people that we didn't even learn it from us then started talking about it. So it really created a movement, and that's it's exciting to see that impact on the industry. But the first UNS that I built was on that Pioneer project in
Yes.
2014. I built like a database management utility that really ended up becoming that like essentially was a unified namespace management utility.
Yeah. Well, Zach, the folks that we're reaching and touching are the regional players and the majors in the EMP space. Those are the Exxon Chevrons, right? And then we've got regional players. They're usually your EMP companies that they don't want you to know their names, because if they have a spill, they don't want you to know who they are. But they're there. And these are these, exploration and production groups. And one thing I can say about them, Zach, is they still spend a lot of time in what I call industry 3.0 in terms of energy. So they're not as, some have evolved to want the UNS, and they're leveraging MQTT. They are looking at IoT Bridge as a way to put data into the cloud, or streaming with Snowflake. So you do have some. I'm currently working with a regional player in the Appalachia that right now we're ripping out Signet and bringing in Ignition. We've got MQTT. We've got a Cirrus Link broker, HiveMQ products. These guys are testing those MQTT brokers. We're using an OnLogic at the edge. We're 80% of their production of that is being leveraged using edge data. And now the next steps are to preach and educate in the field and operations, and then get that data to move into a cloud and get out of that swamp that they have. So
Yeah.
we're in that. But here's what I want you to know, because you don't know this, that Jeff's producing right now. And the other day I saw Walker outside. I walked up to him and shook his hand and said hello. And Jeff grabbed a photo and said, "Here, I got a picture of one of your idols." So
Yeah, no, he's got a personality. Like I say this, like whether you agree with him or disagree with him,
Yes.
you've got to listen to what he has to say.
yeah,
So it kind of made my job easy as being his media producer.
yes,
But also me having that background with him on that project, that monumental Firebrand award-winning project.
yeah,
We were given an impossible task
Yes.
to take 5 different remote. I mean, essentially, this was like a roll-up. They had bought all these different assets. Some of them were midstream. Some of them were more upstream, saltwater disposals, tank batteries, actual oil wells. But then all the way down, they were building like a sand separating plant. Like they were going full vertically integrated. So to take such disparate systems, there's like 5 different Wonderware systems we converted into one singular pane of glass.
Yes.
It was actually distributed. So we had, kind of the concept of a tiered enterprise UNS at the time. And that was done over the gateway area network.
Right.
Maybe people don't know this, but that project is what drove the development of that. That GAN, the gateway area network, which was using essentially the same concept as MQTT, but it was over HTTPS and WebSockets.
I got you. And then here you are with MQTT, which allowed for a better way to flex that type of, I wouldn't say distributed, but for the most part, if I'm leveraging Ignition, that's a scaled out architecture, right? So it really gives you the advantage of that.
Yeah, like with using those distributed providers, and you could scale up, scale out, like scale doesn't become an issue.
Right.
I mean, there was like 11 million tags on that project. Like the scale was insane. And that year when we accepted, Walker went up on stage and accepted the Firebrand Award.
Right.
That was the year Arlen Nipper with Cirrus Link Solutions introduced the MQTT connector, the MQTT modules.
Yes.
So that was kind of the start of it all, right? And then those two concepts came together where it's like, wow, this technology built on MQTT is the perfect technology to build a UNS on. Unified Namespace doesn't always have to be built on MQTT. It just happens to right now be the best one. There's also like Kafka, you can have different technologies that build out a Unified Namespace, but some people get it wrong. It's like UNS is not a historical data.
Right.
It's the real-time data. Your historian is a node that plugs into your UNS.
Yes. And man, Zach, you just said it right there. And I think there's a misnomer about that, right? And what you're saying is, hey, Mike, if you're plugged in, it simply acts as a node. Then you can have clients. I mean, you've got such spectrum with the UNS, right? Is that kind of what you're saying here?
Yeah, like it's important. So the best thing about Unified Namespace is it has like very little standards. The worst thing about it is that it has no standards. Right. So, I said that database utility I built really was a Unified Namespace management utility.
Yeah.
We loaded all of the database dumps in from all the different Wonderware applications so we could categorize all of the data points, all of the addresses, and then using software and scripts, build out that enterprise architecture. With at the time we called it like parent path and tag path.
Right.
So that was essentially enterprise site area line cell.
Yes.
Were rolled up into those parent paths.
Okay.
So like, every asset had its own, it was like a site, the enterprise was Pioneer, right? This is all public. You could go look at the ICC archive 2015 Firebrand Award. But, the enterprise was Pioneer, and then there was all these different sub assets, and then under those sub assets there were areas such as saltwater disposal, tank battery, production wells, and then the individual assets underneath that. So we were building a Unified Namespace at that time, and like the historical data is just something that plugs in and connects to your UNS. Timebase from Flow Software, they have a free historian that you could just have an MQTT connector, subscribe to your data points, and now you're logging data.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, so we reached out definitely to Jeff Nepper and team, and we'll have them later to just kind of go over that. We think that's a big plus right now in the community, right? To add that. I want to ask you some things because I now that I've captured you here, I have so many things that I want to talk to you about, but I want to keep this focused a little bit. In your mind, you've had lots of opportunities to conduct what I call the early part of digital transformation. This is understanding, where someone's at in their digital transformation. Kind of do and conduct your early due diligence about it with different clients. If you had right now, because we don't have a ton of time, right? But if you could break that down, Mike, here are some elements to not fail on your journey through. While digital transformation is a strategy, here are some things you want to do to keep that strategy going in your organization. Here's where you start, and here's how you continue. How would you walk through that?
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It really does start with a digital strategy, and most companies don't know that. Their CEO watched some, McKinsey report or heard about digital transformation. It's like, all right, we got to do this. So they don't actually understand. It really starts with admitting that you have a problem.
Right.
and then understanding why you want to become digital. That's the digital strategy. That's the North Star that aligns everyone in the organization, both like suppliers and integrators and people. They're all running their own departments, they're all running their own initiatives, but they have to have a common digital strategy
Right.
in order to integrate all of those different departments into a single unified data model for your entire enterprise, not just at the plant layer, but across all the plants. And it's very actually hard to do without that digital strategy driving it. It's a strategy that needs to be set from the top, but executed from the bottom.
Got you. Okay. So you bring an interesting point, because you're right. I think a lot of folks, when they hear that, they think that the first thing they have to do is bring all these people in and say, oh, let's announce our strategy. It sounds pie in the sky. But what you're saying is, hey, Mike, you got a North Star, right? Why are we doing this? And then you work your problem backwards to the field or at the edge, and you say, hey, here are ways that we can bring this up. Are you saying like it's kind of like a meeting in the middle? Like, is that what you're getting at?
So this is really, it goes back to that Pioneer project.
Yeah.
We were working on site with the client.
Yes.
So we weren't just like understanding what the requirements were, then going away for 8 months, building out this massive multi-million-dollar project, and then coming in and trying to install it and going live.
Yeah.
We were like actively building as we went.
Yeah.
To where new assets were coming online. If there was a roadblock, we could pivot. I mean, today is kind of known as like the Agile methodology, but there's also other, it's becoming more and more common. So without realizing it at that time, that's what was kind of instrumental to our success,
right?
Was changing the way that we actually worked with the client to deliver value. They have to have internal expertise, right? You can't just outsource digital transformation. You have to have people on your team that are able to execute, right? So the traditional integrator model was like go deep and stay long,
right?
But this new model has emerged, and people here at the conference are talking about it and educating it. We've actually finally like defined what it actually is,
right?
But it's it's more of a collaborative approach to help that flywheel start turning of building value and iterating over development cycles rather than just like turnkey projects. Because again, digital transformation is a strategy, and it's an ongoing process that's evolving as you go.
Okay. So in other words, and you're right, sometimes we'll stick to oil and gas. This applies, of course, manufacturing, but in terms of the energy space, data center, oil and gas, I think you're right, because you can pick a project or you can do something. And what I'm hearing from you is that, hey, when you have something change, you can iterate. Then you might discover something, because you can't uncover everything in the field. You really cannot. It's impossible. I was here and I spoke on Tuesday. They have the Ignition Oil and Gas Collective. And one of the things we talked about in our journey with one of our, exploration and production companies that scale with them is that all the scoping you can do, you still uncovered these sets of tags that they wanted to keep. It's kind of like digital pack rats. They wanted to keep it. Hey, we want to keep that. We want to keep the grandpa needs that. Like it's that feeling that you want to keep those things. And what I'm hearing from you kind of helps out in saying, no, man, you're going to have, it's an iterative process. It's a strategy. You don't go away and come back and say, oh, I've got the whole solution. Here it is. And that word turnkey is abused, right? It's kind of like abused.
Yeah. There's no turnkey solutions. Everything, it's like the MES debate, whether you build or whether you buy. I know MES is outside of the oil and gas space traditionally, but it's like you have these, do you buy off the shelf or do you build it from scratch? Well, no matter whether you buy or you build, you're going to end up building.
Yes.
If that's maybe buying off the shelf and then configuring it. But, every operation is different. There are uniquenesses, and it's a real challenge to be able to take these unlike assets, model them in a like way, and build enterprise value. But yeah, like there are strategies that do work, and, that's kind of what we talked about for like 5 years at 4.0 Solutions.
Yeah, and I appreciate it here. I know that some of it you're having to, I don't want to say regurgitate. I think that's the wrong word. I think that it's educating a different set of listeners and viewers, where in manufacturing, in your execution systems, there's a lot of understanding now in that space. You guys have made a lot of headway, and there's so much room left in energy, oil and gas right now. It's still out there. So let's continue down this, because I've got other things I want to ask you, especially with the things that you're doing now and future. But one of the things.
What do you want to talk about? The problems with oil and gas, or
Well, we could, but that's going to be a long one too, man. Honestly, we could sit here for an hour and talk about that. But you know, uh, I want to ask you, just in your transformation, you've talked about if you could give me three. Zach, what I'm not a fan of is like, 10 ways to lose weight,
Right.
5 ways for digital transformation, 8 ways. But I think for you, there's been things that have guided you through those paths. And I want the Zachisms. You've got a few, you got a lot. But if you could give me 3, hey, Mike, you know what? Always look out for X, or this is what I do in X, in transformation and X. Like if you could list a couple of those, what would those be, man?
Yeah, I mean, for me, a big one has always been like not only the passion for video content creation,
Right.
but understanding how crucial that would be in my professional career and my success.
Yeah.
Because I was a senior engineer when I was 23, and I'm like, well, now I'm kind of, my growth is going to start to slow down. I'm going to, plateau. But I was like, with the futures in AI and video content, I was like, I may not have a job in like 5 years. I was legitimately scared. I'm like, if I don't start creating video content and creating a brand, personal brand, then I would be left behind. Now, that ended up not being true, but that fear drove me to ultimately start my video agency. And then that's where we built out the brand of 4.0 Solutions and Walker Reynolds, and, eventually the Prove It conference, which was honestly like something I'd wanted to do for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
So to help bring that to life was awesome. And then to have it here at ICC is even more insane.
Yeah.
But so I definitely, number one, I hate to be like the Gary V guy or whatever,
No, dude,
but like
say it, man. That's what you're here for.
creating video content is absolutely important. But then beyond that, like if you want to look at like the digital transformation side, is like understand what the why is, what is truly driving you.
Okay.
That also plays into, the personal brand side and what's driving you personally. But if you take that concept and apply it to a company, is like why. Like this is why SpaceX is so successful. Everyone in the company understands what the mission of SpaceX is.
Yes.
Whether you agree with it or whether you don't, that's even better, because now they attract the people that agree with it, and then the people that don't agree with it, they go work for other companies. But a lot of the big companies out there just have a bunch of people who aren't aligned.
Yeah.
Like not just from a technology perspective, but from a values and mission perspective. So digital transformation strategy goes much beyond technology.
Got you. Wow, that's good to know. Man, you really added something there. I want to ask you one last thing, and then I want to talk about what you're doing in the future.
Sure, yeah.
Give me your take right now, if it's cautionary or you should move forward with 3 things. Or actually, both are the same technically, but let's talk. It's a bridge of this, but you've got AI, machine learning, and MCP. Kind of what's your, where do you see that playing? What's your attitude towards AI, machine learning, and right now MCP? I've heard Walker say, if you don't learn MCP, you're dead. Which I think is a valid case, big time. But I want to hear your
Walker
take.
Probably feels like how I felt in 2017 when I was like, if you don't start creating video content in the next 2 years, you won't be able to provide for your family.
Right.
So like maybe it's going to help drive. I think it's definitely important, and definitely learning it is not going to be a bad thing. But I don't think you're going to not have a job in 2 years. I think the reality is, though, using them effectively is going to be able to create a much larger difference in than the ones that are not using it versus the ones that are.
Yeah.
Whereas, so it's a leverage and a multiplier effect.
Yeah.
So I think it is going to be like a new wave. Like, initially the way you built leverage was like by having a lot of human labor. Like one person could create leverage through human labor.
Yeah.
And then eventually like financial capital became like the way that you created a lot of leverage, was like by investing in companies and buying large companies. And then the world of like software and code and media came in, and that's like another layer of leverage.
Right.
I think AI is like the next S curve of technological disruption.
Yeah.
That it creates even more leverage.
Yeah.
Like, so again, if you get inductive automation, ignition, and you have the MCP server, and you're using, natural language to prompt and build out your system, you'll be able to drive, 10x more value than the person who's not. So from that aspect, that's what why Walker says, if you don't learn MCP, you'll be dead.
You.
So I do believe that it is going to create much more of an arbitrage, but hopefully as humans, we can kind of figure it out with like a common mission and values. So
yeah. Man, I want to keep you longer, but I have one last question. And what does the future hold for you going forward? I've noticed, how does the VAR tie into your brand? As part of what you're doing on the value added. Kind of walk us through that. Is that tied into the same brand and what you're doing on the marketing side? I mean, where does that fit for you?
That's a good
what you're doing
question.
in the future.
Yeah, so I'm working at a new startup company, and we're building a value-added reseller.
Okay.
And essentially, I'm doing this series on LinkedIn every day. I'm, building a value-added reseller to $1 million in revenue.
Okay.
We're on day like 14 today. So it's just like a hyper focus on building out that business unit.
Okay.
I'm employee number 1 at this company. The 2 founders hired me. So
Right.
they've entrusted me with a really big task, but I'm being laser focused on how can we package software, like partner with a few software companies,
Okay.
package it with services to install like, I don't know, turnkey solutions, but like specific solutions to specific problems,
Yeah.
and then using digital marketing and engineering experts. Like we're a team of experts. Like I'm an expert in my own right.
Right.
The guys that hired me, they're also experts. So we're building out their, essentially we're like a sales and marketing extension of the
Okay.
OEMs.
Okay.
So that we partner with OEMs, we help them add value to solve problems for customers in a way that drives more sales for the.
I got you.
Because traditionally industrial companies aren't the best at marketing. So there's all these problems out there, but
Man.
they struggle to tell the story as to how their software solves the customer's problem. So we're going to help bridge that gap.
That is so crazy, man, because
There we go. Now I nailed it.
yeah.
I stumbled there for a second.
You got it. No,
yeah.
I think you got it, man. It's funny, but those are my thoughts right now. In terms of marketing, because this is a tough space in terms of not just what you're talking about, just in industrial automation in general, right? It's the why of the product, what problems does it really solve? But marketing that has been not the best thing for anyone in industrial automation. The whole, what I've seen at least.
Yeah, and then just having that full stack fluency across ability, like, traditionally the problem was like marketers didn't have engineering or expertise,
Right.
or the engineers didn't have sales or marketing expertise. So
Right.
if you can kind of like, some people call it like sales engineering, or, it's a really hard thing to find, but we think that that's the solution to helping drive, solve more customer problems and help OEMs, sell more software.
All right. And is this something available that anyone can catch on LinkedIn, or you got to
Yeah.
subscribe? Awesome. We'll grab a link from you. I think that would be a big deal for us to add. And Zach, we've got more. We want to get you to come back to the show. Seriously, honestly. We love to have him here. Thank you so much, Zach Scriven, for joining us. I so appreciate you, man. I'm Mike Flores here with the Energy Tech Podcast. You can like and subscribe, and still a few minutes to come and see us right here at ICC 2025 in the heart of Sacramento. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.